beneath the vast and quiet sky, where the golden sands stretch endlessly in every direction, the pyramids rise with patient grace. They are not hurried monuments, nor do they shout their presence. Instead, they stand in silence, steady as mountains, yet shaped by human hands with intention so precise that it still puzzles those who walk among them today. To stand before them is to feel time itself slowing, as though the rhythm of centuries breathes differently here, softer, calmer, more eternal. Their stones glow faintly beneath the gentle sweep of the sun by day, and under the canopy of stars by night they become silhouettes against infinity. In this stillness, stories begin to unfold, not in words written upon paper, but in whispers carved into stone, in shadows stretching across desert sands, in the way light falls upon their surfaces with every dawn and dusk. Close your eyes in imagination and picture yourself stepping into this ancient land. The air is dry, carrying with it the faint scent of dust and warmth. The horizon seems impossibly wide, meeting the sky in a seamless band of pale gold. Around you, the desert hums with silence, broken only by the soft sweep of wind. And before you, rising with impossible precision, is the Great Pyramid of Giza, its edges aligned perfectly with the 4 cardinal directions. Its base so vast that to walk around it would take you nearly a mile. Each block of stone, some weighing more than an elephant, was shaped, moved, and placed with care thousands of years ago. Together, they form not only a structure but a statement, a reaching upward, a pointing toward the eternal dot. Walk slowly in your mind's eye along the base of this pyramid. Your footsteps sink gently into sand, the grains shifting softly beneath each step. The air holds warmth, but as the evening begins to fall, a subtle coolness mingles with it, easing into the skin. Touch your hand against the stone. It feels solid, grounded, yet surprisingly smooth in some places where wind and touch have polished its surface across the millennia. In other areas, roughness remains, jagged traces of the labor that cut it from quarries long ago. Each stone is part of a larger whole, yet within each lies a fragment of history, a fragment of devotion. Imagine the workers who once moved across these sands. They did not see themselves as mere laborers, but as part of something greater, a collective act of creation that joined the human world with the divine. With chants and songs, with rhythm and breath, they carried blocks up ramps, guiding them into place. The sun blazed overhead, yet their determination was steady, their focus unbroken. To build a pyramid was not only to build for a king, it was to build for eternity itself. These stones were not only walls, they were steps toward the afterlife, ladders upon which the soul of the pharaoh might climb to join the stars. Lift your gaze slowly now. As the last light of the day spreads across the desert, the tip of the pyramid glows faintly, catching the golden hue of the setting sun. Soon, stars will emerge, faint at first, then countless in number, until the entire sky becomes a sea of light. And here, in the design of these monuments, the stars themselves were woven into stone. The ancient builders aligned their work not at random but with the heavens above. The 3 pyramids of Giza echo the 3 stars of Orion's belt, their positioning mirroring the celestial pattern. To the ancient Egyptians, Orion was Osiris, the god of rebirth, the eternal presence in the night sky. Thus, the pyramids became not only tombs but cosmic reflections, binding the world of earth to the world of sky. Step with care into the passages within, narrow and sloping downward into cool darkness. The air grows heavier, the light dim. Stone walls enclose you, rough and unyielding, yet perfectly aligned. Here, silence deepens, a silence so complete that it seems to press gently upon the ears. And within this stillness, one senses presence not of people, for the chambers are long empty, but of belief, of ritual, of the energy that once filled these spaces. The kings for whom these tombs were built sought not simply preservation of their bodies, but passage of their souls. Inscriptions once lined walls, filled with prayers and spells, guiding the departed through the challenges of the afterlife, toward union with the divine. Pause in this darkness for a moment. Let your breathing slow. The air feels timeless here, untouched by centuries, as though the pyramid itself cradles each breath you take. Imagine torches flickering once upon these walls, priests whispering incantations, offerings laid with reverence. Though time has stripped much away, the spirit remains. Every passage, every chamber, is part of a map, a journey through stone that reflects the journey of the soul. Outside again, the night has fully descended. The desert sky is unlike any other, clear and endless, alive with stars. The pyramids beneath this sky do not sleep. They stand as they always have, silent companions of the heavens. Their points reach upward, joining stars in their eternal patterns. Beneath them, you feel both small and infinite, a single breath in the vast rhythm of time, yet connected to all who have ever gazed upon these stones before. Kings, priests, travelers, scholars, wanderers, all have stood here, as you now do in imagination, in awe before the same forms. Beneath the same stars dot in the distance, the desert winds sweep gently across dunes. The sands shift slowly, reshaping the land, but the pyramids remain unmoved. Their endurance is not only physical but symbolic. They remind us that though civilizations rise and fall, though languages change and empires crumble, some creations endure beyond the span of a single age. They endure because they embody something beyond mere survival. They embody devotion to eternity. Now let your thoughts drift gently with this realization. The pyramids are not voices of the past alone. They are presences of the present, reminders carried into today. Their silence is not empty but filled with memory, filled with continuity, filled with the quiet strength of stone. To lie beside them under the stars is to feel a deep calm, as though the desert itself has slowed its breath. You too may slow yours, sinking into that same rhythm. Carried by the endless stillness of this place, as you linger here, you may think of the people who lived in villages nearby, who brought food, water, and tools, who tended to their families, yet also shared in the great task of building something that would outlast them all. Their lives may be lost to history's details, but their work remains. The pyramid holds their hands in each stone, their voices in its silence, their breath in its endurance. When we honor the monument, we honor them to dot. And so, let the story of these pyramids flow softly into you. They are not merely structures, they are meditations in stone. They teach patience, they teach continuity. They remind us that though our days are fleeting, something within us longs for permanence, for meaning that carries forward. To rest in their shadow is to feel both humility and peace. As night deepens, the desert cools further. The air is gentle, carrying faint sounds, a breeze brushing across dunes, perhaps the call of a distant night bird. The stars above wheel slowly in their endless paths, while below, the pyramids remain steady, unmoved. Time is vast here, yet it feels gentle, not rushing but flowing like a wide, slow river. You are part of that flow now, your breath mingling with the desert air, your heartbeat steady as the stones around you. And as your thoughts soften, the pyramids will remain. They will remain through night into dawn, through centuries into millennia. Their silence never broken, their presence never diminished. They will stand as long as the desert itself, companions of stone and sky, guardians of both memory and dream. The desert does not end at Giza. It stretches endlessly, flowing southward along the Nile, carrying its silence across the lands of Nubia. Here, the river is narrower, yet no less eternal, winding gently through cliffs of sandstone and plains of sand. For thousands of years, these southern lands were linked with Egypt, yet they held their own spirit, their own traditions, their own timeless expressions in stone. As you drift with the quiet current of time, imagine yourself moving deeper into this landscape, where another chapter of pyramids rises in calm dignity. At Meru, the sand is softer, more golden in hue. Dunes roll across the horizon like waves frozen in stillness. From their crests, a series of slender pyramids rise, their tips sharp, their sides steep, their presence delicate compared to the massive blocks of Giza. They are not colossal in size, but they are countless, scattered like a gathering of silent guardians. Each points upward, a quiet gesture toward the sky. Their surfaces glow warmly beneath the sun by day, and in moonlight they take on an otherworldly silver, as if they themselves are carved from starlight. Walk slowly among them in thought. The sand shifts beneath your feet with a whisper, soft and yielding. The air carries the faint sound of wind brushing across stone. Here, unlike at Giza, the pyramids rise in groups, clustered together like families. Each one holds within it a story of a king or queen, a lineage of rulers from the kingdom of Kush, centuries after the age of the pharaohs in Egypt. These people built their own monuments, their own eternal dwellings of stone. Their pyramids are smaller, yet no less powerful in meaning. Look closely at one. The walls rise steeply, their angles sharper, their bases narrower. At the front, small chapels are attached, with carvings still faintly visible. In these carvings, gods and rulers appear side by side, guardians of the afterlife, witnesses of devotion. The chapels once held offerings, incense rising in gentle smoke, prayers whispered by families, chants carried by priests. Though centuries of sand and wind have worn them, the essence remains. Each stone bears traces of touch, of faith, of reverence. Close your eyes and imagine the day these pyramids were built. Workers moved across the dunes, guiding blocks into place, chanting in rhythm to ease the weight of labor. The sun shone upon their efforts, and the air was filled with sound, the tap of chisels, the calls of leaders, the shuffle of countless feet. Yet in their minds, they were not building only for their rulers. They were building for eternity. In each block was placed the dream of permanence, the hope that life, though fleeting, could leave a lasting form. As the centuries passed, the sands rose and fell around these monuments. Some pyramids crumbled, their tips broken, their stones scattered. Yet even in ruin, their presence endured. The desert does not erase completely. It reshapes, it softens, but it leaves echoes. And so the pyramids of Nubia remain, their fragments still pointing skyward, their silence still carrying meaning. Picture yourself climbing a gentle dune to look out upon the entire field. From here, the pyramids spread across the horizon, dozens upon dozens, their forms catching the fading light of the sun. The sky above stretches wide and clear, shifting from gold to rose to violet as evening falls. Soon the stars will appear again, countless and steady, the same stars under which these monuments were aligned. In their patterns, the people of Kush found guidance, mapping the journey of the soul through constellations, binding stone to sky as Egypt had done before. The night settles, and with it comes coolness. The desert wind flows across your face, gentle yet steady. The pyramids stand still, their shadows long upon the sand, their tips piercing the indigo sky. Around them lies a silence that feels deeper than words, a silence filled with memory. Each pyramid is more than stone. It is a breath of history, a vessel of continuity, a reminder that across lands and cultures, humans have always sought to shape permanence from impermanence. Let your thoughts drift into the quiet lives of those who once lived nearby. Villages dotted the Nile. Fields grew with crops nourished by the river. Families laughed and worked and rested under the same sun that warms these stones today. Their kings and queens were honored with pyramids, but their people, too, shared in the rhythm of existence. Their stories entwined with these monuments, though their names may be forgotten. Their lives remain in the stones, in the alignment, in the way the pyramids stand still against time. Further north, pyramids cluster again, smaller but no less graceful. Their forms echo the same upward gesture, their presence the same silent dialogue with the sky. Together, Napata and Meru hold one of the largest collections of pyramids in the world. Yet outside these deserts, their story is often less told, their silence less heard. But here, in the stillness of imagination, we pause to listen. We pause to honor their endurance. The moon has risen now, casting a pale glow across sand and stone. Shadows deepen, edges soften, and the pyramids seem less like structures and more like dreams frozen in form. Walk among them slowly, letting each step sink gently into the sand. The air is cool, refreshing, filled with quiet. Above, the stars are countless, their patterns timeless. Below, the pyramids remain steady, their silence unbroken. Together, sky and stone weave a lullaby of eternity. In this stillness, your thoughts may turn inward. The pyramids remind us of a truth both simple and profound, that humans across ages and lands have sought to reach beyond themselves. Whether in Egypt or Nubia, whether in vast monuments or slender spires, the gesture is the same, a reaching toward what lies beyond, a desire to leave behind something that endures. The pyramids are mirrors of that longing, mirrors carved in stone. As the night deepens further, the desert grows even quieter, the winds soften, the sands cool. The pyramids stand as they always have, companions of silence, companions of sky. You breathe with them now, your rhythm slowing to match theirs, your presence dissolving into theirs. And in this merging, there is peace. Let your imagination rest here for a while. The pyramids will not fade. They will stand through night, into dawn, through centuries into millennia, their stones patient, their silence eternal. They will continue to rise beneath the sky, timeless companions of both history and dream. Across the vast Atlantic, beyond deserts and rivers, beyond the endless span of ocean, another world of stone begins to rise. The land is different here, rich with forests, jungles, and high plateaus. Yet the gesture remains the same. Stone lifted upward, shaped with patience, aligned with stars, dedicated to eternity. In Mesoamerica, pyramids stand in quiet majesty, their steps rising toward the heavens, their silence filled with stories as enduring as those of Egypt and Nubia. Imagine yourself stepping into this new landscape. The air is warmer, heavier with moisture, carrying the scent of earth and leaves. Birds call from the trees, and somewhere in the distance a river flows with steady rhythm. And before you, rising from the plain, is the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan. It does not rise in sharp, smooth lines like Giza, nor in slender elegance like Meru. Instead, its form is massive, wide, layered in steps that ascend gradually toward the sky. Yet the impression it leaves is the same wonder, and the feeling of standing before something eternal. Walk slowly toward it in thought. The ground beneath your feet is firm, paved long ago with stone by hands that built a city designed with cosmic precision. The pyramid rises above you, tier after tier, until it reaches a flat summit. Its stones are warm in the sun, their surfaces rough but steady. Each step seems to call you upward, yet as you climb in imagination, the rhythm of the ascent slows. You are not rushing here. You are pausing with each level, letting your gaze stretch outward to the surrounding city. From the top, the view is wide and calm. The Avenue of the Dead stretches below, lined with smaller pyramids and temples, each aligned carefully to the cardinal directions. Beyond the city, mountains rise, their slopes softened by distance, their forms echoing the pyramids themselves. And above, the sky is vast, filled with clouds drifting slowly in the sunlight. You breathe deeply here, feeling the rhythm of the city that once thrived below. Teotihuacan was once filled with life, markets, homes, plazas, the voices of thousands. Yet now its silence is complete, and in that silence, the stones endure. The Pyramid of the Moon stands nearby, smaller yet equally graceful. Its steps lead upward, toward the mountains beyond, as though in dialogue with the natural world. Together, the pyramids of Teotihuacan form a harmony between human creation and the landscape, binding earth and sky into one vision. To walk among them is to feel a sense of balance, of calmness that transcends centuries. Close your eyes now and listen to the imagined sounds of this ancient place. The calls of priests rising at dawn, the steady beat of drums, the chants carried upward on the breeze. Rituals once filled these spaces, offerings given to the gods, prayers spoken to the sky. Though time has taken those voices, the essence remains, woven into every stone. The pyramids are not silent because they are empty. They are silent because they hold all sound within them, preserved in their form, echoed in their presence. Further south, in the forests of the Maya, pyramids rise again, their steps steep, their temples crowning their summits. At Chichen Itza, the Pyramid of Kukulkan stands with precision so perfect that twice each year, on the equinoxes, the light of the sun creates the image of a serpent descending its steps. This was no accident. The builders aligned stone and sky so carefully that light itself became part of the monument. To watch this serpent of sunlight appear is to witness stone and sky in dialogue, a union of human intention and celestial rhythm. Picture yourself there. The air is filled with the hum of cicadas, the rustle of leaves, the warmth of the tropical sun. The pyramid stands steady, its steps rising high, its temple crowned with shadows. You wait quietly as the sun lowers, and slowly, a pattern emerges. The edge of the pyramid casts a shadow that looks like a serpent's body, moving gradually until it reaches the carved head of Kukulkan at the base. The illusion is simple, yet profound. It is a reminder that the builders saw the sky not as distant but as part of life, part of rhythm, part of eternity. Far to the west, at whose another pyramid rises, the Pyramid of the Magician, oval in form, mysterious in presence. Legends say it was built in a single night by magic, yet its stones tell of patient work, of human devotion stretched across years. Its sides curve gently, its steps steep, its summit crowned with a temple. In moonlight, it appears almost alive, as though the legends themselves linger in its form, and deeper still into the jungles. At Tikal, great pyramids rise above the canopy, their tops emerging like islands of stone in a sea of green. Climb one in your mind's eye, and from its summit, look across the forest. Trees stretch endlessly, their leaves glowing in sunlight, their branches filled with life. Yet above them, the pyramids rise, steady and unmoving. Their silence is not separate from the forest but part of it, woven into the rhythm of wind, leaf, and bird. Pause here, breathe with the forest. Let your thoughts drift into the calm of leaves rustling, of shadows shifting, of stones standing patient. The pyramids here remind us that human creation is not always apart from nature, but can be a harmony with it, a gesture that rises with the trees, a rhythm that joins with the sky. As centuries passed, the cities of the Maya too grew silent. Their plazas emptied, their temples stood alone, their pyramids became cradled in vines and roots. Yet even when hidden, they endured. The jungle does not erase, it embraces, and so, when these monuments were rediscovered, they emerged not broken but preserved, their silence intact, their presence as eternal as ever. Further still, into the Valley of Mexico, the Aztec built their own temples in pyramid form, continuing the same gesture upward. At Tenochtitlan, their great city, the Templo Mayor rose at the center, twin shrines atop a stepped pyramid, dedicated to gods of war and rain. Though much of it is now gone, its foundations remain, reminding us that the gesture of stone toward sky was never lost, only transformed, reshaped across cultures and times. As night falls again in this new world, the pyramids take on new form. The stars above are countless, just as they were above Giza and Meru. The constellations are different here, yet the intention is the same. Each stone was aligned with the heavens, each step built with rhythm. Each monument a dialogue between earth and eternity. Stand for a moment in imagination beneath the night sky of Teotihuacan. The avenue of the dead stretches before you, silent now, yet alive in memory. The pyramids rise on either side, their forms dark against the stars. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of stone. You breathe slowly, deeply, matching your rhythm to theirs. The silence here is vast, yet calming. It is the same silence that binds all pyramids, the silence of patience, of endurance, of eternity. Let yourself rest here for a while. The pyramids of Mesoamerica are not separate from those of Egypt or Nubia. They are part of a single story, a story of human longing expressed in stone. Across oceans, across centuries, people raised their hands, lifted stones, shaped monuments that would outlast them, that would bind their lives to the sky. The forms may differ, but the essence is the same, the silent reaching upward, the timeless conversation with the eternal. In the desert's stillness, the pyramids rise, as if they were carved, not just from stone, but from silence itself. They stand in timeless repose, their lines cutting across the horizon, guardians of an age when the world was young and humanity was just beginning to write its memory into stone. To stand before them is to step into a dream older than history, one that whispers across the shifting sands, telling stories not in words but in the weight of their presence. These are not merely monuments, they are voices of eternity, speaking to us through patience and stone, and in their shadow, we find the quiet heartbeat of civilizations that lived and dreamed beneath the same sky we gaze at now. Imagine the desert thousands of years ago, before the pyramids themselves stood. The Nile flowed, carrying with it not just water, but the lifeblood of Egypt. Along its banks, people tilled the soil, raised their children, built villages of mud brick, and looked at the sky with wonder. They saw the stars arching overhead in infinite silence, constellations forming patterns that guided their thoughts as much as their fields. Among those stars was a sense of permanence, and in that permanence, the seeds of the pyramids were born. For what were the pyramids but an attempt to make earthly stone echo the eternal heavens? Slowly, softly, the story unfolds. Pharaohs dreamed of permanence, of binding their names to eternity. Their vision was not one of fleeting triumphs or fragile palaces, but of mountains of stone, perfectly aligned, eternal as the constellations themselves. And so, the labor began. Generation after generation gave their strength to this dream. Stone by stone, the pyramids rose, like frozen sunlight stacked against the sky. It is said that tens of thousands labored, but in the stillness of the desert, we hear not the clamor of tools or the shouts of men, but only the wind brushing over timeless walls. The pyramids tell their story, not with noise but with silence, not with motion but with their stillness. The Great Pyramid of Khufu stands tallest, a mountain born of human hands. For millennia, it was the tallest structure in the world, a wonder that seemed beyond the reach of possibility. How were such stones moved, placed with such precision? Many theories have been whispered, from ramps of earth and wood to more mysterious visions, but the truth is lost to time, buried beneath the weight of centuries. And perhaps that is as it should be. The pyramids are not puzzles to be solved, but mysteries to be lived with. Eternal reminders that some things belong not to explanation but to wonder. Beneath the pyramids, corridors run like veins through the stone. Chambers lie in perfect alignment with stars, with solstices, with the great map of the heavens itself. To enter them is to step into a realm between worlds, a place where stone and silence merge into something that feels sacred, even now. The pharaohs who lay within believed their journey was not an end, but a continuation. Their tombs were not resting places but gateways, passages to the eternal voyage beyond the sky. And so, they filled these chambers with treasures, with food, with texts, with statues, to serve them beyond death. Yet time, patient and relentless, took most of it away, leaving the empty corridors echoing with absence. Still, the silence of the pyramids carries their purpose, their dream of immortality. The desert has watched these structures longer than any living memory. Sands have blown against their sides, winds have smoothed their edges, but still they stand. Empires rose and fell around them. Persia, Greece, Rome, Byzantium, the Caliphates, the Ottomans, and beyond. Each saw the pyramids and wondered. Each measured themselves against these silent stones. Conquerors came and went, yet the pyramids endured, indifferent, eternal. Their silence became their greatest strength, and so we drift across centuries. Travelers from ancient Greece stood in awe before them. Herodotus wrote of them, unsure of their secrets, his words already full of speculation. Centuries later, Napoleon stood before the same stones, telling his soldiers that, from the tops of the pyramids, 40 centuries looked down upon them. Imagine the quiet majesty of that moment. Soldiers staring up in silence, humbled by time itself. The pyramids became more than tombs. They became mirrors of eternity, reflecting back to each visitor their own smallness in the face of time. In the moonlight, the pyramids change again. Their stone takes on a silvery glow, shadows stretching long and soft across the sand. The desert cools, the wind whispers gently, and the pyramids seem less like monuments and more like dreams, caught halfway between earth and sky. Imagine lying beneath them, the stars glittering above, the stones glowing pale in the moonlight, and feeling the immense calm that radiates from their presence. This is why they endure, because they are not just structures, but experiences, not just history, but eternity given form. Across Egypt, smaller pyramids stand too, built by other pharaohs, echoes of the great ones. Some have crumbled, worn by time, their smooth casing stones stripped away, leaving rough steps beneath. Yet even in ruin, they retain their dignity. To look upon them is to realize that even decay cannot erase purpose, that the dream of eternity lingers in every broken block, every fallen stone. The pyramids are not alone in their silence. Around the world, civilizations sought permanence in stone. In Mesoamerica, the pyramids of Teotihuacan rise like mountains of their own. In Sudan, the Nubian pyramids cluster in the desert, smaller but no less serene. In Asia, great stupas and ziggurats reached skyward, each echoing the same human yearning, to touch the eternal, to bind heaven and earth with stone. And yet, the pyramids of Egypt remain the most iconic, the most enduring, perhaps because their lines are so simple, so pure, that they seem to embody eternity itself. What stories might the stones tell if they could speak? They would whisper of the men who carved them, of the songs sung during labor, of the priests who aligned their shadows with the stars, of the pharaohs who believed that within these stones lay the key to immortality. They would whisper of nights when torches flickered against their sides, when ceremonies filled the air with incense and chant. They would whisper of centuries when jackals roamed the sands, when silence was their only companion. And they would whisper of now, when millions travel to stand before them, cameras in hand, still seeking the same wonder that has always lingered there. As centuries pass, the pyramids continue their silent watch. They ask nothing of us but attention. They demand no answers, only awe. And as we drift in their presence, whether in the desert sun or under the stars, we are reminded of our place in time, fleeting, brief, but connected to eternity through memory, through wonder, through the silent stories of stone. And so, as this quiet narrative flows like the Nile itself, we allow the pyramids to guide us into sleep. Their silence becomes our silence. Their endurance becomes our calm. They do not speak loudly, they do not demand, they simply stand, and in their stillness we find peace. Close your eyes, let the desert winds brush softly around you. Let the stars glimmer overhead, and know that the pyramids will remain timeless, silent, patient, always there beneath the eternal sky. The desert stretches endlessly, a canvas of gold and quiet, and there, like guardians carved from eternity, the pyramids continue their silent vigil. By the time we arrive at this point in their long story, thousands of years have passed since the first stone was laid, and yet their presence has not diminished. Instead, it has grown, layer upon layer of meaning added by each generation that has stood before them. What once was built as a resting place for kings has become a resting place for human imagination, a mirror in which every age sees itself reflected. The fifth rhythm in our long journey lies not in how the pyramids were constructed, but in how they endured. For endurance itself is a kind of language, one spoken not in words but in silence, not in sound but in presence. They are reminders that time itself can be held, however briefly, in human hands. And when we let our thoughts wander across their stones, we are not thinking only of Egypt, but of humanity, of the universal desire to outlast the present moment, to touch eternity, to leave something behind that will continue speaking long after our voices have faded. Travelers of the medieval world saw them differently than those of antiquity. To the Greeks and Romans, they were wonders, baffling achievements of geometry and strength. But as centuries passed, a knowledge of their original purpose grew dim. Other stories arose. Some believed they were built not by pharaohs but by kings from before the flood, or by giants of old, or even by prophets who foresaw a great deluge and stored knowledge in hidden chambers within. These myths, whispered across time, added new layers of mystery to the pyramids, as if their silence invited us to imagine. To fill the quiet with our own tales, imagine a caravan approaching from the east, camels swaying beneath the sun, merchants carrying spices, silks, and stories. For them, the pyramids were not just stones in the desert, but signposts of permanence, markers of a civilization older than memory. They would stop, gaze upward, and speak of them in distant lands, until their outlines were drawn in the minds of people who might never set foot in Egypt. In this way, the pyramids became not just monuments of stone, but monuments of imagination, carried across deserts and seas by those who had looked upon them and felt the weight of their silence. And still, the question of their purpose lingered. Was it only for the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife? Or was there something more, an attempt to align humanity with the cosmos itself? Their sides, perfectly angled, catch the sun at equinox and solstice. Their corners align with the cardinal points, their chambers point to stars. Such precision seems deliberate, a message written not in ink but in geometry, as if the builders wished to anchor their lives not only to the earth but to the heavens. And so, for those who walked in their shadows, the pyramids became more than tombs. They became cosmic ladders, bridges between stone and sky, even when stripped of their shining white casing stones, which once reflected the sun like mirrors. The pyramids retained their dignity. Imagine, centuries ago, the Great Pyramid gleaming like a beacon, its smooth sides glowing beneath the sun, its tip crowned in gold or electrum. To stand before it then would have been to stand before a mountain of light. Today, the rough steps beneath are exposed, weathered by centuries. But even in this, there is beauty. For in their weathering, the pyramids remind us that time reshapes all things, and that even eternity wears a softer face when touched by centuries of wind and sand. In the quiet of night, myths swirled around them. Some believed secret chambers lay hidden within, filled with ancient wisdom, prophecies, or treasures untouched by time. Explorers dreamed of corridors that stretched endlessly, of knowledge preserved against the fall of empires. Many searched, many tunneled, many hoped, but the pyramids remained mostly silent, revealing only fragments of their secrets. And perhaps this is why they endure so strongly in imagination, for the silence of what is unknown is always more powerful than what is revealed. Beyond Egypt, echoes of the pyramids spread like ripples. Builders in Nubia raised their own, more slender pyramids, rising like elegant arrows from the desert floor. In faraway lands, cultures that never touched Egyptian soil still dreamed of pyramid forms, stepped structures in Mesopotamia, towering ziggurats, temples climbing skyward in Asia and the Americas. The pyramid, it seems, is a shape that humanity discovers again and again. As if deep in our collective mind, the triangle rising into the sky holds some secret meaning. Perhaps it is stability, Perhaps it is aspiration. Perhaps it is simply the most natural form to give our dreams of eternity. As centuries passed, the pyramids became symbols for the world beyond Egypt. Medieval travelers wrote of them as wonders of an earlier, greater age. Renaissance thinkers measured their proportions, seeking divine geometry. In the Enlightenment, scholars debated whether they encoded knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, or even the measure of the earth itself. And today, millions visit them, standing with cameras where once scribes stood with papyrus, yet feeling the same awe. The silence of the pyramids continues to gather new meanings, generation after generation, each adding its own thread to the endless tapestry of interpretation. Yet through all of this, the pyramids themselves remain unchanged. They are not concerned with our theories, our myths, our stories. They simply stand, patient and enduring, their meaning written in their stillness. To lie beneath them, listening to the desert winds, is to understand that some truths are not meant to be spoken but to be felt. Some mysteries not meant to be solved, but to be lived with. And so, in this long and gentle story, we let the pyramids guide us into rest. Their shadows stretch softly across the sands, their stones warm with the memory of countless suns, their silence deeper than the deepest sleep. They are not only monuments to the pharaohs, but monuments to time itself, to the human longing for eternity. And as the desert night draws its veil across them, stars gathering above their peaks, we close our eyes and allow their timeless presence to carry us into dreams as quiet, as enduring, as the pyramids themselves. The night above the desert is endless, filled with stars that seem close enough to touch. It is beneath this vast celestial canopy that the pyramids take on another life, for they are not only structures of stone but instruments of the heavens, aligned carefully with the great patterns of the sky. To sit quietly near their base, with the sands cool and the air still, is to feel the slow turning of the earth and to recognize that the builders were not only architects of stone, but architects of time itself. When one looks at the Great Pyramid, one notices that its sides face almost exactly north, south, east, and west. Such precision, accomplished without modern tools, tells us something about the builders' understanding of the sky. They were not only attentive to the rising and setting of the sun, but to the movement of stars, those eternal markers of direction. In the age of the pharaohs, one of the shafts within the pyramid pointed toward the star we now call Thuban, in the constellation of Draco, which served as the pole star thousands of years ago. To lie within the pyramid, beneath its weight and silence, and to look outward through that passage, would be to look directly into the still point of the heavens, the place around which all the stars appear to turn. It is as if the soul of the pharaoh was given a direct road into the eternal sky. The shafts and passages of the pyramids seem to speak to us in this language of stars. Some are thought to have aligned with Orion's belt, the 3 stars in a row that shine so distinctly in the night sky. In ancient Egyptian thought, Orion was associated with Osiris, lord of the afterlife, a god of rebirth and continuity. To align the pyramid with Orion was perhaps to ensure that the pharaoh would join Osiris in the eternal cycles of life and death, forever reborn among the stars. Nearby, the bright star Sirius, sacred to the goddess Isis, would rise just before dawn to announce the flooding of the Nile. The union of Orion and Sirius in the heavens mirrored the sacred bond of Osiris and Isis in myth, a bond that shaped both religion and architecture. And so, in the stillness of night, the pyramids become not only tombs, but cosmic stories written in stone. Imagine now, a night, thousands of years ago, when priests stood upon the desert sands and looked upward to the stars. They would chant, they would measure, they would observe the heavens with patience born of faith. They were not in a hurry, for the sky reveals its secrets slowly, over years and lifetimes. The pyramids became their instruments, their markers against which to measure the cycles of stars and seasons. The rising of Sirius brought the promise of the Nile's floodwaters, without which Egypt could not survive. The stars, therefore, were not distant lights but companions, guides, and teachers, and the pyramids were the bridges between earth and sky. This connection between pyramids and stars has inspired countless interpretations over the centuries. Some imagine that the Great Pyramid encodes the size of the earth, or the distances to the sun and moon. Others believe it contains a map of the heavens, frozen in stone, so that future generations might read the wisdom of the ancients. Whether these ideas are accurate or not, the fact that the pyramid continues to invite such thoughts is part of its enduring power. It is as if the pyramid, by remaining silent, allows us to project our own questions, our own wonder, onto its timeless form. Beyond the technical alignments, there is something poetic in the way the pyramids mirror the stars above. When one looks at the arrangement of the three great pyramids at Giza, their layout echoes the three stars of Orion's belt, two large and one smaller, slightly offset, just as the stars appear in the night sky. Whether by design or coincidence, the resemblance is striking, and it invites us to think of the pyramids not as isolated structures but as part of a larger pattern that stretches from the earth into the heavens. The desert floor becomes the canvas of the gods, the pyramids their footprints, and the sky above their reflection. Such thoughts are not new. Ancient writers believed the pyramids to be repositories of cosmic knowledge, places where geometry and astronomy met in sacred union. In the Middle Ages, some suggested that within the pyramids lay hidden prophecies, written not in words but in numbers, angles, and alignments. Renaissance scholars measured their proportions, imagining that divine wisdom had been encoded in their form. Each age found its own meaning, its own reflection, in these silent stones, and still, beneath all these interpretations, the pyramids themselves remain simply what they are: structures of stone, built with human hands and guided by human eyes. Yet even in their simplicity, they invite us into mystery. For why, we may ask, did human beings go to such lengths, move such massive stones, spend such lifetimes of labor, only to create something that seems beyond practical necessity? The answer may lie not only in religion or politics, but in the deeper human need to reach beyond the visible world, to create something that touches eternity. There is a quiet truth in this, that we build because we long to endure. We align with stars because we long to belong to the cosmos. We create monuments because we long to be remembered. The pyramids, in their silence, speak this truth back to us. They are mirrors of our own yearning, reflecting our desire to find meaning, to leave a trace, to hold time in our hands, if only for a moment. As the centuries rolled on, the pyramids became companions to new myths. Arab historians told of kings who stored hidden treasures within them, or of magicians who foresaw the flood and preserved knowledge in their chambers. Travelers spoke of secret doors and passageways that led to hidden worlds. Some said the pyramids contained maps of the earth, or even of the heavens themselves. These stories, though not factual, are part of the pyramid's long life, for they remind us that monuments are not only built of stone but also of imagination, and perhaps imagination is the more enduring material. The pyramid's role as cosmic structures finds echoes far beyond Egypt. Across the world, in distant lands, human beings raised monuments that also align with the heavens. The great stone circles of Europe, the stepped pyramids of Mesopotamia, the temples of the Maya and Aztec all seem to echo the same desire, to link earth with sky, to live in harmony with the great cycles of the universe. It is as if humanity, scattered across continents and centuries, was united by a single dream, to turn stone into a dialogue with the stars. And so, the pyramids remind us that we are not alone in our search for meaning. They are part of a larger chorus, a universal song sung in different voices but with the same longing. To sit in their shadow is to hear that song, softly, like a lullaby carried on desert winds, reminding us that we, too, are part of the cosmos, that our lives are threads woven into the fabric of the stars. As the night deepens, the pyramids grow darker against the sky, their outlines sharp beneath the constellations. The desert cools, the sands grow still, and the stars wheel overhead in their eternal dance. The pyramids do not move, they do not speak, yet they participate in this dance simply by being aligned with it, by standing as still points against the turning of the heavens. To lie near them in sleep is to feel that stillness enter your own being, to breathe with the rhythm of eternity, to rest in the company of stone and sky. And so, Block 6 of our long journey leaves us here in the quiet of the desert night, beneath stars that shine as they did thousands of years ago, in the shadow of pyramids that stand as they did thousands of years ago, timeless companions to human wonder. When we move gently forward in time, the pyramids remain in place, unchanged, but the world around them shifts and transforms. Empires rise, empires fall, and yet these silent monuments endure, becoming mirrors in which each new age sees something of itself. To the Greeks and Romans, who encountered them long after their builders had passed into memory, the pyramids were not tombs but wonders, extraordinary achievements that seemed to defy the limits of human ability. They did not know the names of the pharaohs, nor the rituals once performed within the shadow of the stones. What they saw was majesty, permanence, and mystery. Greek travelers like Herodotus wrote of the pyramids with awe. He heard stories from the locals, blending fragments of truth with colorful invention. He told of vast armies of workers, toiling for decades, building ramps of earth and stone, moving blocks that seemed too massive for human strength. He described the pharaohs as both great kings and tyrants, their monuments as testaments to pride as much as to faith. For the Greeks, the pyramids were part of their growing catalogue of wonders. Alongside Babylon's hanging gardens and the towering statue of Zeus, they did not fully understand them, but they recognized their place in the theater of greatness. The Romans, too, were captivated. Soldiers and scholars alike visited Egypt when it became part of the empire, and they wrote of the pyramids with fascination. Some saw them as tombs, others as fortresses, others as treasure vaults built in ages so distant they could scarcely be imagined. For the Romans, who built their own monuments of stone and arch, the pyramids were a challenge from the past, proof that even the ancients could rival Rome's greatness. And yet, they also inspired humility, for here was something so old that even Rome's power seemed fleeting in comparison. To stand before the pyramids was to feel the weight of time pressing from behind, reminding all who gazed upon them that history is longer than any single empire's life. As centuries passed, knowledge of the pyramids' origins grew dimmer. The priests and scribes who had once guarded their meanings were long gone, their words lost, their language unreadable. What remained was the form itself, the massive triangles rising from the desert, their smooth casing stones still gleaming in the sun. And into this silence, myths poured like water filling a vessel. Arab historians writing centuries later told of kings who built the pyramids to protect treasures and wisdom before a great flood. They spoke of hidden chambers filled with books of magic, of statues that moved by unseen forces, of corridors lined with gold. The pyramids became, in imagination, more than tombs. They were thought of as libraries, as fortresses of memory, as vaults of the earth's most ancient secrets. Travelers from distant lands came to see them, their journeys long and difficult, their impressions recorded in manuscripts that carried the pyramids into Europe and beyond. To these visitors, the pyramids were reminders of a world older than their own scriptures, older than their kings, older than the very maps they carried. They did not know the pharaohs' names, but they felt the weight of their ambition, and in the quiet of the desert, they heard their own questions echoed back by the stones. Medieval writers often wove the pyramids into biblical history. Some said they were the granaries of Joseph, built to store food against famine. Others claimed they were erected by Noah's descendants, or even by beings who walked the earth before the flood. To them, the pyramids were not Egyptian alone, but part of the universal story of humanity, tied to the myths and scriptures that guided their own worlds. In this way, the pyramids were woven into stories that gave them new meanings, reshaped to fit the needs of each age. As the centuries moved closer to our own, explorers of the Renaissance returned to Egypt with fresh eyes. They measured, they sketched, they compared, trying to fit the pyramids into the growing body of knowledge about the earth. For them, geometry and proportion became keys to the mystery. Some believed the Great Pyramid encoded divine measurements, the very proportions of the earth and heavens captured in its angles. Scholars debated, argued, published, each adding another voice to the long conversation the pyramids had inspired. And yet, the stones themselves remained silent, indifferent to interpretation, content to stand as they always had, letting each age project its own meanings upon them. When the casing stones were stripped away, used to build new mosques and palaces in Cairo, the pyramids changed their appearance, but not their essence. Their smooth sides became stepped, their mirror-like gleam replaced by rugged outlines. Yet even in this altered form, they did not lose their majesty. If anything, they seemed more ancient, their bones exposed, their endurance more visible. They were no longer mountains of light, but mountains of shadow, their silence deeper, their mystery more profound. To walk among them in those centuries was to feel that one was walking, not only through a landscape of stone, but through a landscape of time. The desert itself seemed to respect their presence, dunes curving gently around their bases, winds whispering softly against their faces. The pyramids did not resist time, nor did they yield. They simply existed, unchanging, while the world around them altered again and again. When Napoleon arrived in Egypt with his army in the 18th century, he stood before the pyramids and spoke to his soldiers, reminding them that 40 centuries of history gazed down upon them. In his words, the pyramids became a symbol of endurance, a reminder that their own battles and victories, however grand, were but brief moments in the vast theater of time. Artists and scientists who came with him recorded the pyramids in sketches and notes, carrying their image back to Europe in unprecedented detail. The fascination grew, and with it, a wave of new interpretations, each seeking to explain their secrets. In every age, the pyramids have been both ancient and new, both known and unknown. They have served as tombs, as symbols, as wonders, as puzzles. And yet, through all of this, they remain what they always were: silent companions to the desert, monuments to human ambition, guardians of the threshold between life and eternity. To lie beside them in thought, to let their shadow stretch across the mind, is to feel the long procession of history move gently past, each age pausing briefly to gaze upward before moving on. The Greeks, the Romans, the travelers of the Middle Ages, the scholars of the Renaissance, the explorers of modern times, all have stopped here. All have asked their questions, all have heard the same silence, and in that silence lies the true voice of the pyramids, speaking without words, reminding us that meaning is not always found in answers but sometimes in the stillness of what endures. And so, the pyramids continue, watching as centuries drift by like grains of sand in the desert wind, their presence unshaken, their silence unbroken, their story still unfolding. As the modern age dawned, the pyramids remained exactly as they had been for thousands of years, but the eyes that looked upon them had changed. New travelers came, carrying maps, compasses, notebooks, and instruments of measurement. They came not only to marvel but also to study, to question, and to record. The age of exploration had given way to the age of inquiry, and in that transition the pyramids once again became more than stone. They became voices waiting to be heard, archives waiting to be unlocked. The desert still stretched around them, vast and serene, the wind moving gently over their worn edges, the sun painting their sides in warm gold at dawn and fading crimson at dusk. But in the silence, men and women bent to the sand, brushing away dust, prying open sealed passages, and carrying lamps into spaces that had not felt human breath in millennia. They were seekers of knowledge, though not always careful in their touch. Some chipped, some took, some disturbed what had lain undisturbed. Yet even in these restless acts, a new chapter opened, one in which the pyramids became not only symbols of mystery, but keys to understanding. It was in the early 19th century, in the time after Napoleon's campaign, that the Great Decipherment began, when the Rosetta Stone was uncovered, carved with the same text in Greek and in the long-forgotten symbols of the pharaohs. A window opened. Patient scholars traced the curves and strokes, testing meanings, matching words, and slowly, like a candle flame growing brighter, the ancient language returned to human comprehension. The voices of the builders, once silent, began to whisper again through stone inscriptions, temple walls, and tomb carvings. Suddenly, the pyramids were no longer mute. They were storytellers. Hieroglyphs revealed prayers, rituals, names of kings, and hopes for eternity. Where once travelers had guessed wildly, imagining granaries or treasure houses, now the true story emerged, that these immense structures were built for the journey beyond death, not merely for wealth or pride, but for passage into the eternal. The pharaohs had sought not only to rule in life, but to endure in spirit, and the pyramids were their ladders to the stars. Archaeologists pressed deeper, mapping the corridors, measuring the chambers, noting the alignment with the heavens. They found that the pyramids were not placed at random but with exquisite care. Their sides aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, their angles shaped to meet the rising and setting of celestial bodies. They were monuments not only of stone but of sky, instruments of time as much as tombs of kings. And still, the pyramids kept some of their secrets. For all the measurements, for all the discoveries, there remained unanswered questions: how so many stones were moved, how such precision was achieved, what knowledge guided the builders. Each answer opened new mysteries, as if the pyramids gave only what they chose to give, holding back the rest in quiet reserve. Meanwhile, the world beyond Egypt looked on with renewed wonder. Paintings, engravings, and later photographs carried their image across continents. Travelers wrote of their journeys, describing the long approach across the desert, the first glimpse of the sharp peaks rising from the horizon, the way the stars seemed to rest above their summits at night, the pyramids became a dream destination, a place where one might touch not only stone but time itself. As tourism grew, caravans of camels brought visitors to their bases. Some climbed the rugged steps, scrambling upward to see the desert stretch endlessly in every direction. Others lingered at the base, resting in the cool shade cast by blocks larger than their bodies, tracing their hands along edges cut so long ago. Guides told stories, some true, some imagined, keeping alive the sense that the pyramids were more than monuments, that they were living presences in the desert, companions to anyone who stood near them. The pyramids also began to shape national identity. As Egypt moved through centuries of change, from Ottoman rule to colonial influence, and then into independence, these timeless structures stood as anchors, symbols of resilience, pride, and continuity. They reminded the world that Egypt's history stretched not only back centuries but millennia, and that its roots were deeper than any modern empire's reach. For Egyptians themselves, the pyramids became both heritage and horizon, reminders of the greatness of ancestors and beacons for the future. Writers and poets across the world wove them into their works. To some, they were metaphors for endurance, for the power of memory. To others, they were enigmas, shadows of a wisdom lost. In the quiet of night, by lamplight or candle, readers let their minds wander to the sands, imagining the stars above the desert, the black silhouette of the pyramids rising against them, silent yet eloquent, still yet speaking. And always, the pyramids remained the same. Weather touched them, sand shifted at their feet, stones loosened and fell, but their form endured. They did not resist the ages, nor did they yield completely. They adapted, like the desert itself, to the passing of time, and in doing so, they became companions to the modern world, just as they had been to the ancients, a bridge across ages, linking those who built with those who gaze upon them now. Today, when one stands at their base, the air is filled with echoes, the murmur of guides, the laughter of travelers, the distant hum of the city nearby, all mingle with the eternal silence of stone. At night, when the desert cools and stars appear in their thousands, the pyramids once again become what they have always been: watchers of the sky, anchors of the earth, voices without sound. And those who listen closely may feel not only the weight of the past, but the promise of continuity, the reassurance that even in a changing world, some things remain. The pyramids have lived many lives in human imagination. Treasures, mysteries, wonders, metaphors, they are all these things, and yet more than any of them, they are presence itself, pure endurance, a reminder written not in ink but in stone that humanity's story is long, that it stretches beyond memory, and that it reaches toward eternity. And so, they stand, as they always have, as they always will. The pyramids, though built by human hands, belong as much to the sky as they do to the earth. Their triangular forms rise upward, narrowing to points that seem to lean into the heavens, as if drawn not only by gravity below, but by the stars above. And when we pause to look at them, not with the eyes of engineers or explorers, but with the quiet gaze of dreamers, we begin to see how they hold within them something more than stone. They hold reflection, and they hold rhythm. Night after night, the desert sky arcs overhead. The stars, unclouded by the noise of cities or the brightness of lamps, shine with an ancient clarity, just as they did when the first blocks were laid upon the sand. The builders would have looked up and seen the same constellations, the same sweep of the Milky Way, the same North Star steadying the axis of the sky. Their calculations, their alignments, were not accidents. They were acts of reverence, gestures of connection. The pyramids were placed to echo the stars, to mirror them, to become eternal companions to the cycles of night. In this way, the pyramids are not merely tombs, they are instruments of memory, vast sundials and star charts, translating the movements of the heavens into the language of stone. The Great Pyramid of Giza, with its sides almost perfectly aligned to the cardinal points of the compass, speaks of an understanding of Earth's orientation that still humbles the modern mind. Narrow shafts within its body point toward specific stars, as though carrying the soul of the pharaoh outward, guiding him along celestial paths. To stand within these chambers is to feel the pulse of two realms, the silent weight of earth and the immeasurable light of the sky. But the pyramids are not only bridges for kings. In their endurance, they have become bridges for us all. Each visitor who rests against their base, each traveler who lets their eyes linger on their peaks, participates in the same timeless rhythm. The stones, warmed by day and cooled by night, absorb the presence of all who come. They gather the whispers of languages, the footsteps of centuries, the quiet beating of countless hearts that have stood in their shadow. And in return, they offer perspective, reminding us that we, too, are part of a story much larger than our own. The desert itself joins in this rhythm. Winds sweep grains of sand across the ground, shifting dunes, smoothing surfaces, wearing edges into softer lines. The pyramids adapt, weathering slowly but never vanishing, as if to remind us that endurance is not resistance but harmony. They yield to time and yet remain. They lose a stone here, a surface there, but their essence endures. The lesson is gentle but profound. Permanence lies not in the absence of change but in the embrace of it. As seasons move, so too do the pyramids' moods. In summer, their stones blaze with heat, the air shimmering around them, the horizon trembling like a mirage. In winter, the desert cools, shadows deepen, and the pyramids stand like guardians of silence, their outlines crisp against the pale sky. At dawn, they catch the first light, their tips glowing before the sun itself rises fully. At dusk, they gather the last color, holding it a moment longer before night takes it away. In every season, in every light, they remain themselves yet become new. Each day a reminder that even what seems unchanging lives in cycles. And so, when we speak of the pyramids, we do not speak only of history. We speak of eternity, of presence, of the quiet truth that human beings have always sought to understand their place in the cosmos. To the pharaohs, this understanding took the form of structures meant to bridge the worlds of life and death. To us, it may be something simpler, a sense of awe, a pause in the rush of days, a reminder that the sky we look upon is the same sky that guided their hands. There is something healing in this perspective. When the pyramids remind us of time's immensity, they also remind us of the smallness of worry, the fleeting nature of struggle. For thousands of years, storms have come and passed, empires have risen and fallen, lives have begun and ended, yet the pyramids endure, and in their endurance lies a gentle comfort, whispering that the burdens of today, too, shall pass. That what is lasting is not the turmoil of the moment, but the deeper rhythm that flows beneath it. Many who stand before them feel a quiet hum, not in sound but in awareness, as though the pyramids radiate the patience of millennia. They have waited through ages without hurry, without urgency, without complaint. In their silence, they teach stillness. In their shadow, one feels no demand but only presence, the invitation to breathe deeply, to look outward and upward, to remember what it is to simply be. It is easy to forget, in a world of haste, that life is also meant to be lived slowly. The pyramids remind us. They remind us that some things cannot be rushed, that true creation, true endurance, takes time beyond counting. They remind us that silence is not emptiness but fullness, a space where meaning ripens unseen. They remind us that even in the desert, where life seems scarce, beauty and mystery flourish. The stars, too, continue their rhythm. They rise and set, they shift across seasons, they trace patterns that have guided travelers for thousands of years. And the pyramids, grounded in earth, continue to point upward, connecting those patterns with our own brief journeys. To watch the stars above the pyramids is to feel suspended between two eternities, the permanence of stone below and the infinity of sky above. Between them lies the fragile thread of human life, delicate yet luminous, fleeting yet meaningful. Thus, the pyramids remain not only monuments but mirrors. They reflect what we bring to them: curiosity, reverence, wonder, even silence. And in reflecting us, they remind us of our own place in the story of existence, our own longing for continuity, our own search for meaning. And so, in the cool of night, as the desert winds whisper and the stars turn overhead, the pyramids remain as they have always been: silent, patient, eternal. They are companions to time, reminders of the vastness we inhabit, and gentle teachers to those who pause to listen. The pyramids stand as more than relics of a distant civilization. They are, in their essence, embodiments of a human desire that is both ancient and eternal, the longing to last. Every stone, lifted and set with patience and toil, was an offering to the idea that life should not end in silence, that memory should outlive the body, that spirit should have a home in eternity. It is a longing that transcends the pharaohs, that moves through us all. For each life seeks to leave something behind, a mark, a gesture, a reminder that it was here. And yet, the pyramids whisper a paradox. They endure, yes, but they endure not in perfection but in patience. Their outer casings are long gone, their surfaces weathered, their chambers emptied, their treasures taken. They have lost much of what they once held, and yet they remain, as present and commanding as ever. They endure not by resisting change, but by surrendering to it. They have let go of what could not be kept, and in letting go, they have gained something greater, the ability to last, in essence. Not in detail, this is their quiet teaching, that permanence does not mean the absence of loss, but the weaving of loss into continuity. The pyramids endure as memories endure, not in sharpness, but in presence. A face may fade from recollection, a voice may dim, a story may blur, but the presence of love remains, the presence of meaning remains. So too with the pyramids. Their surfaces change, their treasures vanish, but their meaning deepens. When we look upon them, we see not only the pharaohs who built them, but the echo of every life that has stood near them, every gaze lifted toward their summits, every hand that has touched their stones. They carry the weight of countless human moments, woven together across centuries, held in the stillness of stone. They are, in this sense, not just tombs but vessels of memory, not of individuals alone, but of humanity itself. And as we let our minds wander across this thought, a certain peace emerges. For if the pyramids endure, not in what they keep but in what they become, then so too might we. Our lives may not be marked by stone, nor by monuments, but by the quiet traces we leave in others, the kindness given, the presence shared, the love carried. These things, to endure, though they take no shape the eye can measure, they endure in ways like the desert wind, unseen yet felt, shifting the sands of memory gently, patiently, endlessly. The pyramids remind us, also, of scale. They are immense, their stones rising high, their bases wide, their weight beyond imagining. Yet for all their immensity, they exist in a world larger still. The desert stretches farther, the sky reaches higher, the stars burn longer, and in this awareness, the scale of our own lives feels smaller, but not diminished. For smallness, too, has its beauty. A grain of sand, though tiny, is part of the dune. A moment, though brief, is part of eternity. To rest in this thought is to release the need for grandeur. We need not build pyramids to endure. Our lives need not stretch across millennia to matter. Meaning is not measured in size or in time, but in presence, in the way we exist fully in the moment given to us. The pyramids, in their vastness, remind us not to strive for their scale, but to see in their silence the truth that even the greatest of human works is but a gesture within the larger whole. And if that is true of the pyramids, it is true of us all. As the desert night deepens, as stars climb higher, as the wind cools and carries the scent of sand, the pyramids become companions to reflection. Their outlines blur in the darkness, their stones dissolve into shadow, and yet their presence is felt more strongly than ever. It is in the darkness, perhaps, that their true essence is revealed, not as shapes or structures, but as quiet reminders of eternity. For in the dark, there is no distraction of detail, only the pure sense of presence, and in that presence, a stillness spreads. It spreads across the desert, it spreads across the listener's mind, it spreads into the breath, steady and calm. The pyramids ask for nothing, they demand nothing, they simply are, and in their being, they invite us to simply be as well, to breathe, to release, to rest. In the stillness of the pyramid's gaze, time softens. The divisions of past, present, and future blur. The pharaohs are gone, yet they are here. The travelers of centuries are gone, yet they are here. We, too, will one day be gone, and yet we, too, will be here in presence, in memory, in essence. The pyramids remind us that nothing truly vanishes, that all becomes part of the greater whole, that we are never lost but only transformed. And so, as night deepens and stars wheel slowly overhead, the pyramids remain what they have always been, silent, patient, enduring. They do not answer every question, they do not solve every mystery, they simply endure, as presence, as rhythm, as continuity, and in their enduring silence, they offer a final gift, the peace of surrender, the peace of knowing that we, too, are part of eternity. The desert at night is a sea of stillness. The winds, once restless with heat, settle into quiet streams of cool air. The sand, stretching endlessly in every direction, gleams faintly under the silver wash of moonlight, and rising from this sea, steady and unshaken, are the pyramids, silent, timeless, serene. They stand not as remnants of the past, but as presences of eternity, companions to both night and day, to both memory and dream. That's the moon drifts higher, its light glides across the angled stones, tracing soft patterns, filling the hollows with shadow, lifting the summits into pale glow. The pyramids seem less like stone and more like mountains of light, resting between earth and sky. To look upon them now is to feel as though one is gazing not at a monument but at a thought, a dream given shape, an idea translated into matter. They seem less built than breathed into being, as if they have always been here, waiting for human hands to simply uncover them. The silence around them deepens. It is not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of fullness, a silence filled with memory, with patience, with the slow hum of existence itself. The desert does not speak, but it listens. The stones do not move, but they endure. And in this stillness, the mind finds itself quieting, thoughts softening, the edges of worry dissolving into the calm horizon. The pyramids, in their endless vigil, are more than watchers of time. They are teachers of stillness. They remind us that life is not always about motion, not always about striving, not always about building higher or reaching farther. Sometimes life is about being, about resting, about allowing the rhythms of the world to flow around us, while we remain grounded, present, steady. Perhaps that is why, through millennia, they have drawn so many hearts to them, not only because they are wonders of stone, but because they reflect something we long for: a stillness that does not end, a presence that does not fade, a peace that endures through the shifting sands of time. They remind us that we, too, can rest in silence, that we, too, can be steady, that we, too, can find within ourselves a pyramid of presence, an anchor against the restless winds of life. Above, the stars continue their quiet turning. They shine with the same light that shone upon the builders, the same light that shone upon travelers of centuries past. The constellations trace their paths, the planets drift slowly, the Milky Way arches in radiant silence, and beneath them, the pyramids stand as though they were part of the sky itself, fallen stars resting upon the desert floor. In their alignment, in their patience, they echo the eternal rhythm of the cosmos. As we breathe with them, slowly, gently, we begin to feel that rhythm as well. Breath in, breath out, steady as the desert wind. Breath in, breath out, steady as the turning stars. Breath in, breath out, steady as the pyramid's eternal presence. With each breath, the body softens, the mind eases, the heart quiets. We are no longer separate from the desert, no longer separate from the sky. We are part of the same rhythm, the same stillness, the same eternity. And in this space, memory itself becomes soft. The stories of pharaohs and kings, the names of dynasties, the rise and fall of empires all fade into a gentle blur, like footprints smoothed by sand. What remains is not detail but essence, not history as a record, but history as a presence. The pyramids are not here to remind us of rulers alone, but of humanity's longing, of humanity's dreams, of humanity's unending dialogue with time. This is why they endure not only in stone but in imagination. They live in poetry, in song, in story, in dream. They live in the way we think of eternity, the way we wonder about what lies beyond life, the way we yearn for meaning in silence. The pyramids live wherever the human spirit reaches beyond itself, seeking the sky. And as the night deepens, as stars brighten, as silence folds itself around us like a gentle cloak, we realize that the pyramids are no longer only out there. In the desert, they are within. Their stillness is our stillness. Their patience is our patience. Their silence is our silence. And as we drift further into this awareness, we feel the gentle call of rest, the invitation to surrender to sleep, to join the rhythm of eternity. Sleep, too, is a pyramid. It rises from the foundation of the day, built stone by stone from every thought, every action, every breath. It narrows as we move upward, drawing us inward, drawing us toward silence, toward the summit of stillness. And at its peak lies rest, pure and timeless, a chamber of peace where we can lay down our burdens, where we can drift without weight, without worry, without end. The pyramids know this rhythm, for they too were built as places of rest, not of sleep alone, but of eternal sleep, of passage into the silence beyond life. And so, in their presence, it feels natural to rest, natural to close the eyes, natural to let go. The desert whispers it, the stars whisper it, the pyramids whisper it. All invite us to surrender to the same silence, the same eternity. And so, as the night deepens further, as the last traces of day fade fully from the horizon, as the pyramids stand bathed in the silver calm of the moon, we, too, allow ourselves to enter that stillness, to breathe gently, to drift quietly, to rest deeply, to become, for a moment, like the pyramids themselves, silent, patient, eternal. The night stretches endlessly, calm and unbroken. The desert lies in its vast stillness, and the pyramids remain, quiet as ever, holding their vigil under the stars. They are the last voices of an age long gone, yet they do not speak with words. Their language is silence. Their message is endurance. Their story is written not in ink, but in shadow, in stone, in the endless rhythm of the sky above them. As we reflect upon their presence, we are reminded of how small our own span of time is compared to theirs. Empires rose, flourished, and crumbled into dust, yet the pyramids remained. Pharaohs who once commanded thousands of workers, who envisioned eternity in stone, are now remembered mostly through their monuments. Cities that once thrived around the Nile have long since been buried by sand and memory, yet the pyramids endure. They are not the story of a single life, but the story of time itself. Each block of stone, lifted with human hands, placed with intention, is a heartbeat of history. Each angle, each shadow, each chamber is a whisper of vision. But beyond the technical wonder, beyond the marvel of engineering, lies something deeper, a stillness that teaches us the meaning of presence. They remind us that it is possible to build something greater than the self, something that lives beyond years, beyond centuries, beyond memory itself. And yet, for all their grandeur, they do not shout, they do not dazzle with noise or motion, they simply stand. In this, they are unlike the many monuments of the world that demand attention, that seek to astonish. The pyramids astonish by not asking to. They astonish by their silence, by the way they let the wind pass over them, the sand drift around them, the sky moved endlessly above them. Their strength is not in force, but in patience, patience that is their true gift to us. The patience of stone that endures the sun's relentless heat, the storms of sand, the gaze of countless generations, the patience that whispers to us, time is not something to be conquered, but something to be lived within. To stand steady in the flow of years is not to resist, but to endure with grace, with quiet, with stillness. And so, as we lie within the gentle rhythm of this narration, we find ourselves sinking into the same patience, the same silence. The pyramids do not rush us. They invite us. They invite us to let go of urgency, to release the weight of worry, to breathe deeply and slowly, to allow time to pass without resistance. In their presence, sleep itself feels like an echo of eternity, a small surrender into timelessness. Think of the builders. Centuries ago, their days were filled with labor, with the lifting of stone, with the shaping of history. And yet, when the sun fell, they too would rest. They too would lay their heads beneath the same stars, the same sky that still shines above us. Perhaps they listened to the desert winds. Perhaps they dreamed of what they were creating. Perhaps they wondered if the stones they carried would truly last forever. They could not have imagined that their work would one day lull people to rest thousands of years later, in faraway lands, under faraway skies. And yet, here we are listening to their silence, resting in their presence, dreaming in their shadow. The pyramids, then, are not only tombs, not only monuments, not only relics. They are bridges across time, across silence, across sleep itself. They connect the living with the long gone, the present with the eternal, the fleeting with the timeless. They show us that nothing is truly lost, that presence endures, that silence is never empty but always full. As the night deepens, the stars wheel on, and the pyramids remain unchanged, their summits still pointing toward eternity. Around them, the desert breathes, the sand glows faintly, the air cools, the horizon fades into shadow. And in this vastness, we find ourselves smaller, yet not diminished. For to feel small before eternity is not to feel lost, it is to feel held, gently, within something greater. It is to feel that our lives, too, are part of this rhythm, this silence, this patience. So let us rest now. Let us close our eyes and let the pyramids keep watch. Let the desert hold us in its quiet vastness. Let the stars guide us into dream. Let silence be our companion. For in this silence, we are not alone, we are part of something timeless, something eternal, something as steady as stone and as vast as the sky. And as sleep draws near, Soft as sand, steady as breath, we carry with us the gift of the pyramids, their stillness, their patience, their silence, a silence that comforts, a silence that endures, a silence that cradles us gently into rest. The pyramids will remain, as they always have, long after this night ends, long after countless nights fade into morning, and so too will their silence remain within us, guiding us back whenever we need stillness, whenever we seek peace, whenever we long to rest. Now, as the stars turn above the desert, as the sand lies calm, as the pyramids stand eternal, we surrender to the quiet, to the rhythm, to the silence, and we drift, softly, into sleep.